Order, honorable members. When business was suspended, the House was considering the motion moved by the honorable member for Shangombo that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Transport Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the Central Corridor Transit Transport Facilitation Agency Agreement, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024, and the Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics was debating. May the Honorable Minister continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For cogency, Madam Speaker, allow me to recap that at this point, Madam Speaker, allow me to address some of the concerns and recommendations made by your committee. Number one, periodic review on domestication and compliance in the application of rates, charges, and payment arrangements by member states. This August House may wish to note that the Central Corridor is the first smart corridor in the region that has developed a multi-modal transport performance monitoring tool to monitor performance on the Central Corridor. The tool compiles and publishes reports on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis and covering 6 major trade and multimodal transport areas that include volume of transactions, transport and rates, productivity and efficiency, transit times and delays, and transport safety. And two, Madam Speaker, composition of the Executive Board. Once Zambia ratifies the agreement and it comes into force, one of the amendments to be proposed will be the need for the agreement under Article 14 to be clear and specific on which private sector representative or entity will sit on the Executive Board. Madam Speaker, the conclusion of the report indicates that this too is a non-controversial matter that requires the support of this August House. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Shangombo, winding up debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me once more again thank the second of the motion, Honorable Charles Abemlenga, Honorable Fube, Honorable Jacqueline Sabao, and all the members who debated, and of course the Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Order. I put the question. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the Central Corridor Transit Transport Facilitation Agency Agreement, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26th July 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Notes of motion. The Honorable Member for Shangombo.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopt the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the international agreements on the tripartite road and rail transport and the revised Nakala Development Corridor for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker, the motion is being seconded.
Seconded by the Honorable Member for Kwacha. The question is, you are too close to me, so. Seconded by the Honorable Member for Kwacha. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the international agreement on the tripartite road and rail transport and the revised Nakala Development Corridor, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024. Any debate? The Honorable Member for Shangombo.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Orders 206 and 7F of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2024, the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply was tasked to consider the international agreements on the tripartite road and rail transport and the revised Nakala Development Corridor in order to acquaint itself with the ramifications of the agreement. The committee sought both written and oral submissions from various stakeholders. Madam Speaker, I wish to put it on record that the committee is in support of the proposal to ratify the Nakala Development Corridor Agreement, as this is the landmark opportunity for Zambia to unlock its growth potential, create jobs, and improve the lives of our citizens. I also wish to urge the members to support the report, as acceding to this agreement is one of the positive moves in the right direction for our country to achieve the aspirations of becoming a middle-income country by 2030. Furthermore, I wish to say that the stakeholders who interacted with the committee are also in support of the agreements. Madam Speaker, after considering the agreements, the committee has made some observations and recommendations which are documented in the report. Allow me to highlight only some of the committee's observations and recommendations. Madam Speaker, the committee notes with concern that private sector representation has been excluded from the revised Nakala Development Corridor committees under Articles 9 and 10. Notwithstanding their expected importance in the supply of transit and traded products within the corridor once it is operational. In view of this, the committee recommends that since the private sector will also be using the corridor, the composition of the national subcommittee should include representation from the private sector for all the committees on the Nakala Development Corridor except the Council of Ministers. Madam Speaker, another issue pertains to Article 30 of the revised Nakala Development Corridor, which provides for disputes settlement. With unresolved disputes being referred to the next dispute resolution hierarchy until the Council of Ministers who have the final decision making autonomy. The committee expresses concern that in the case of exceptional circumstances, where the Council of Ministers fails to resolve the matter through consensus, it is not clear how a conclusion could be reached. It is for this reason that the committee recommends that the article should provide for parties to seek recourse through the arbitration if the dispute is unresolved by the Council of Ministers. Madam Speaker, the committee knows that Zambia has entered into various agreements in order to open up the country for trade and investments. However, the committee expresses concern that if action is not taken, there could be duplicity of trade agreements acceded to that serves the same geographical routes or those that have limited trade benefits, thereby putting more pressure on the already constrained finances without realizing the intended benefits. In view of this, the committee recommends that there should be periodic audits to cross-check which agreements should follow so that the country only remains party to the one that serves the ultimate purpose of reducing transportation costs, opening up the cross-border trade, value addition, and boosting economic growth through improved transport and logistics infrastructure. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, permit me to express my sincere gratitude to you and the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly of Zambia for the support given to the committee during its deliberations. Gratitude also goes to all the stakeholders who tendered both written and oral submissions before the committee. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Kwacha.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion that was moved by the chairperson of the committee, Honorable Muvika. And in seconding the motion, Madam Speaker, allow me first and foremost to sincerely thank him for moving that motion, and also to highlight a number of points that have been captured in the committee's report on the international agreement on the tripartite road and rail transport and the revised Nakala Development Corridor. The first highlight, Madam Speaker, is the submission from various stakeholders that appeared before the committee and who tendered their views on the benefits on the economic growth which is envisaged to result from this particular agreement. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, from the onset that the Nakala Development Corridor, which was initially signed in 2000 and amended in 2003, among other things, sought to improve collaboration in infrastructure development and also transportation and cross-border trade along the corridor. These features are quite prominent, Madam Speaker, for all the member states who are collaborating on this particular agreement. They are looking at increase in terms of trade, border trade, as well as regional integration. However, stakeholders noted that aspects of research and monitoring and evaluation has not been included even in the revised Nakara Development Agreement of 2023. And this must be taken into account, Madam Speaker, so that these are captured in order to enhance the agreement as we go forward. This was particularly important in appreciating the impact of the corridor through periodical reviews. And when we look at the agreement, the recommendations, Madam Speaker, that came from various stakeholders, they recommended that the agreement should include an article that would address the need for monitoring and evaluation through a comprehensive and systematic approach. The approach should include the following: setting clear objectives and key performance indicators, as well as collecting data from various sources. Other recommendations included conducting regular monitoring activities, and conducting in-depth evaluation at specific intervals. Of course, if these recommendations are taken into account, Madam Speaker, it will provide an in-depth in terms of understanding of the cost-benefit analysis of the corridor in short to long term. Madam Speaker, the second highlight that was presented or noted was on the community engagement, where most stakeholders noted with concern that the agreement did not actually address the aspect of community engagement. Since local communities, a new aspect coming into place. Properties because like in this corridor or increased area in terms of land where these road networks would actually pass. And in the process, we see that some of the people along the road where it's supposed to be extended will actually be affected. And so there is need actually first and foremost to put in place a mechanism where there is a stakeholder engagement, where people will be engaged and also they will be able to know exactly what is coming before them. Madam Speaker, it was recommended by various stakeholders that there should be emphasis on community engagement in the agreement during project implementation regarding the short-term negative impacts as well as the long-term benefits. The long-term benefits being creation of employment and business opportunities, including skill transfer. It was actually noted. At the end, I wish to state that subscribing to the agreement will yield more benefits, Madam Speaker, as this will open up the country to the shortest route to the sea at the port of Nakara in Mozambique, which is roughly in the range of about 1,054 kilometers from Lusaka. I therefore appeal to every member in this House, Madam Speaker, to support the report. As I concluding, Madam Speaker, it is important to note that this Nakara Development Agreement is a welcome move which will open up a lot of avenues in the country, economically and otherwise. Madam Speaker, with these few words, I beg to second the motion.
Thank you. Any further debate? The Honorable Member for Kanyama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity that you have given me to add a voice to the matter that is being,
Sorry,
discussed.
Honorable Member for Kanyama, there is an indication for a point of order. Honorable Member for Chama South, what's the point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this point of order is directed to the Minister of Home Affairs. It is after a long period of waiting, Madam Speaker. It should be appreciated that this Parliament is part of government. We are part of this new dawn government as members of Parliament. Whatever happens in the executive, it is this House that does the oversight role on the executive. I'm aware, Madam Speaker, that the Honourable Minister has held a number of press press conferences over the heinous act, gruesome murder of our brother. I have to mention to you, Madam Speaker, that Mr. Mlea, we were with him at Eucharist as well as CBU. The Honorable Minister has not briefed this House or updated the people of Zambia through this wing of government so that Madam Speaker, someone is busy disturbing me.
Order, honorable members, let's listen. The standing orders, honorable member Fonkana, they are very clear. I don't know why you like debating while seated. I don't know how many times you are going to be reminded to desist from debating while seated. May we allow the honorable member for Chama South to raise his point of order. Indicated, I've given him the floor. Let him raise his point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
After citing the order that has been breached, the standing order.
Madam Speaker, I will cite at the end. For the benefit of the honorable members, Mr. Mlea was not an ordinary citizen. Actually, he is among the best fine brains that this country has lost. And he was holding a very high position. Those of us who shared his vision and aspirations are now beginning to wonder as to whether we or our directors in these parastatals and many other quasi-government institutions, particularly the younger generation, is safe. Therefore, I really wanted, through you, Madam Speaker, to find out why the minister has remained quiet to this August House. Through this August House, also assuring our people, we are the people's representative, that our civil servants, particularly the upright and hard-working civil servants, are safe in their offices. Remember, Madam Speaker, we are fighting corruption and many other issues. Is it in order not to at least inform this House and assure us that the perpetrators of that heinous crime, regardless of who they are in this society, will be caged for life, if possible? I was even made to regret the removal of death penalty, Madam Speaker. I seek your serious ruling, Madam Speaker.
Order. First of all, the honorable member has not cited the standing order that he was as 65 is an old standing order. Okay, let me just make my ruling. I've already reminded you that you have not cited the standing order. This matter, honorable members, was an attempt to raise it on Friday by the honorable member from Pika. And my response at that time was that the police are investigating and they will be coming back. But now there's an indication from the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs that is ready to come with a ministerial statement on Thursday, this Thursday, to brief the House and the people on how far the investigations have gone. So let's wait for that opportunity, then we can ask our questions. So the Honorable Minister is coming to the House on Thursday, this Thursday. Thank you. May the Honorable, Honorable Member for Kanyama continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a very important and progressive motion that has been, brought on this House, in this House rather. I just want to look at the concerns, raised by stakeholders. Madam Speaker, each time we go into these, regional agreements and the like, it's very, very cardinal and important that we own these, programs. We need to be part of these programs. Looking at what I've just come to establish is the fact that we are good at, acceding to some of these, regional groupings, but little do we participate and probably come up with the issues or how we need this to be handled. We leave it to whoever would want to leave it. At the end of the day, we realize that there's nothing that the country achieves from whatever we debate. Very good at talking, but when it comes to the actual work, it's like we don't do anything. I'm looking at page 10, concern number 1, where stakeholders noted that Article 8 of the NDC agreement provided that the management board would ensure that the human resource policies and NDC management committee achieves a fair and balanced and equal participation by candidates from all parties in the staffing of NDC secretariat position. However, stakeholders expressed concern that issues of gender parity in the agreement under the article were not included. So these are some of the issues I'm talking about. We are previously, just in this house, we were talking about no gender parity, where we required our women folk to also be part of the. So as we are looking at that committee, where of course I believe our Zambian people or Zambian human resource is there, can we also try and embrace, our women folk to be in those positions? The second item that drew my attention was research and monitoring and evaluation. This, Madam Speaker, is key to lasting solutions to the well-being of any program that or project that needs to be undertaken. Monitoring and evaluation, if that is embedded in the agreement, is of utmost importance in assessing the success of any project or program. It helps to identify any potential issues, track progress, and measure outcomes. So if we are able to, we may come up with this program, we may sign, ratify this, but if we don't have a mechanism that will be used to monitor the progress, track how whatever has been agreed is being followed, Madam Speaker, I think for me, I would say we're just wasting time. We need to fully own these programs that we are acceding to. We need to participate fully. What is happening is you realize that a number of programs that have been agreed regionally, I've never heard of any headquarters being domiciled in Zambia. All the time is outside, and Zambia has been in existence for over 60 years. But to date, we are still cleaning on others. When are we going to come out and say, this is actually ours, and we are part to this, and we have got an upper hand? We are voting against whatever other state members would want to. But at the end of the day, all the time is just being shamoked. All the time, whatever they say, oh yeah. Whatever they say, oh yeah. So if only we can fully participate and own these regional agreements that we accede to, the ones that we are ratifying here, I think will never go wrong. Because what is happening is, we'll accede, we'll ratify this, but at some point, because we haven't fully owned this, then you find things are not working. At the end of the day, we just be coming with the amendments. Finally, Madam Speaker, there's a clause where it's talking about dispute settlement. Amicable is not a way to go where issues of legal in nature, happen. We cannot say in event we've got a situation, we need to handle that amicably. Amicably is a friendly thing that does not even need ratification. If we are to go through that route, I think it's better we don't even ratify. We need a more formidable way to settle disputes. We are not going to go the amicable way. I'll give you an example. If you look at what is happening somewhere between our border, Congo and Zambia, where it's alleged that some people are encroaching into our Zambian soil. It's something that is unbelievable because there are boundaries. Now, if we are going to handle or settle disputes in an amicable way, then you find people even enter as far as Chirabombwe, Mufurira there, claiming this is Congo. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Any further debate? The Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics response.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to thank all the members, from the mover of the motion, Madam Speaker, to the seconder, and indeed the debater, the Honourable Member from Kanyama, who have added their voices in support of this very important, non-partisan, indeed non-controversial motion. Madam Speaker, government remains committed to actualizing its vision of transforming into a regional transport and logistics hub. Given the various transport corridors that traverse our country, government recognizes the importance of collaboration with its neighboring countries in the development of transport infrastructure and systems as enablers for trade and for socio-economic development. Madam Speaker, ratification of the revised Nacala Corridor Agreements, the tripartite road transport agreement, and the agreement amending the tripartite rail transport agreement will, among other things, 1, promote and facilitate infrastructure development that will enhance connectivity and facilitate the safe and seamless movement of goods, services, and passengers along the corridor. Number 2, enhance intra-regional and international trade for Zambia and other member states through the harmonization of customs clearance procedures. Number 3, strengthen diplomatic relations and cooperation among member states in resolving any identified challenges along the corridor that hinder trade and the movement of goods, services, and passengers. And last in part 4, Madam Speaker, stimulate socio-economic development as well as help improve the lives of our people along the corridor, including small and medium-scale enterprises or businesses. Madam Speaker, we take note of the concerns raised by stakeholders in your committee's report. These concerns are indeed the very reason why Zambia needs to ratify the Nacala Agreement in order for them to be resolved multilaterally with neighboring countries. We also take note of your committee's observations and recommendations, which we generally agree with and will endeavor to address. At this juncture, Madam Speaker, kindly permit me to address some of these concerns and recommendations made by your committee. Number 1, once Zambia ratifies the agreement and it comes into force, we will be proposing the inclusion of gender parity in the staffing of the Secretariat, representation of the private sector in the composition of the national subcommittees, and the provision for parties to seek recourse through arbitration in dispute resolution in the agreement. Number 2, the aspects of research, monitoring, and evaluation will sit in the agreement, but will be addressed in the proposed structure and functions of the Secretariat, as this is an administrative function. 3. Disruption of livelihoods and local communities during project implementation. Ratification of the agreement will not in any way compromise the sovereignty of the country in enforcing and implementing already existing laws and regulations with regard to displacement or indeed compensation. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I would like to urge this august House to support the ratification of the Nacala Development Corridor Agreement, as this will have a positive impact on Zambia's trade and socio-economic development. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Shangombo, winding up debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to thank the seconder of the motion, Honorable Mlenga, and also Honorable Chinkuli, of course the Honorable Minister of Transport and Logistics, and all the members, Madam Speaker, on both your left and right, for overwhelmingly supporting the motion. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The question is, I put the question. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the international agreement on the tripartite road and railway transport and the revised Nacala Development Corridor, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House. For the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26th July 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Notes of motion, the Honorable Member for Matero.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the Pan-African Parliament, PAP, for the third session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament held from 25th June to 26th July 2024.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Order, honorable members, order. Seconded by the honorable member for Kafue. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Zambian delegation to the Pan-African Parliament for the third ordinary session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament held from the 25th June to the 6th of July 2024 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024. Any debate? The Honorable Member for Matero.
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Orders number 154 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders 2024, I rise to give a statement on the meeting attended by the Zambian delegation to the PAP during the third session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament held from 25th June to 6th July 2024. Madam Speaker, for the information of the House, the PAP, short for Pan-African Parliament, is the legislative organ of the African Union. It was first proposed for establishment in 1991 in the Treaty establishing the African Economic Community, commonly known as the Abuja Treaty. The Parliament was, however, only set up in 2004 by Article 17 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union. The original setup of the PAP was for it to perform full legislative function for the African continent, in the same way the EU Parliament is for the continent of Europe. However, the actualization of this depended on the ratification of the protocol establishing the PAP by at least 2/3 of member states of the African Union. So far, this, not even 50%, has been achieved. Madam Speaker, however, some countries have not signed the protocol and the PAP does not yet have legislative powers. Madam Speaker, the last meeting was held after an absence of almost 1 year following the leadership challenges that rocked the continent parliament. The leadership challenges were resolved in March 2024 when elections were held. The elections were for 3 vacant positions of the parliament, namely that of president, first vice president, and 4th vice president. The parliament has 4 vice presidents representing each region of Africa, and the president comes from one region of the 5. So the presidency was with the southern region of Africa, and that's where the vacancy was. Madam Speaker, the House may wish to note that the contest for the presidency was between Zambia and Zimbabwe. Zambia was represented by yours truly, Mr. Miles Bwalia Sampa, while Zimbabwe was represented by Chief Fortune Chalumbira. Zambia lost the election by 1 single vote. Out of, since SADC, each country brings 5 MPs, times 10 countries, that's 50. So Zambia got 22, Zimbabwe 23. Madam Speaker, on why is a big topic of another day. For now, Madam Speaker, allow me to thank your office, Madam Speaker, and that of the clerk and members of Parliament of the National Assembly for the huge moral support that they gave to the candidate. We had it in the bag, but it missed us by 1 vote. Madam Speaker, the above notwithstanding, the PAP has continued to come up with model laws which provide a guide to African Union member states as they develop laws on various socio-economic parameters. In 2022, the delegation in its report to this House presented the model law on food and nutrition security. During the last session, the PAP adopted a model law of cooperatives. This law comes up at an appropriate point in the legislative process of Zambia, as the country is currently undertaking discussions on the review of Cooperative Society Act number 20 of 1998. So ideally, the Pan-African Parliament would come up with a model law that countries of Africa, Zambia inclusive, can tap from. Madam Speaker, cooperatives have been identified as a resilient and sustainable form of business because they are driven by values which aim to meet the social, economic, and cultural needs of their members. Given their nature, cooperatives have the potential to contribute in realizing the African Union's vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena in Zambia. Madam Speaker, in Zambia, cooperatives are at the core of driving development in various communities, as they are one of the tools for organized groupings to access the enhanced constituency development fund, CDF. However, Madam Speaker, for cooperatives to play their role effectively, they must operate in an enabling environment that fosters their growth. The model law of cooperatives developed by the Pan-African Parliament, PAP, therefore provides all the key ingredients to spur the cooperative movements in Zambia to greater heights. So instead of reinventing the wheels, this model law could be good to look at as we try to remodel the Zambia Cooperative Act. Madam Speaker, the model law is expected to guide the development of new cooperatives legislation as well as help during the revision of existing legislation. The model law is a compilation of best practices and can be used as a one-stop center for those who wish to draw on best practices in developing or revealing cooperative legislation. The model law can also help act as a catalyst for harmonizing cooperative legislation and practice across the entire continent of Africa. In doing so, it can help the cooperative movement in Africa to potentially have a greater integration, harmonization, and collaboration. Madam Speaker, the model law is therefore submitted for consideration by the National Assembly of Zambia through adopting it as a whole or incorporating components of it into local legislation. Madam Speaker, before I conclude, and also speaking as the current chairperson of the Pan-Africa Committee called CAPA, which is Committee on Accounts and on Committee on Audit and Public Accounts. In Zambia, it's equivalent to what we have as PAC. Madam Speaker, the concern is the Parliament is funded by the AU, and the AU is funded by our countries, including Zambia. Last year, the budget for the Parliament was exhausted mid-year, and we didn't sit for the rest of the year. And this year, again, mid-year, the 2024 budget has already been exhausted, and we're not likely to sit. So that's one element as chairman of PAC there, as chairman of CAPA, I'm battling with and getting all stakeholders involved to ensure that the funds that our countries in Africa, Zambia inclusive, are spent within the budgeted allocation. Madam Speaker, as I conclude,
kindly wind up, your time is up.
As I conclude, allow me to appreciate you for affording the delegation the opportunity to represent your parliament at the Continental Parliament. As you may have noted, a number of insightful deliberations and products were realized from the delegation's attendance of the meeting. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. I've seen the seconder is supposed to come in now, but the honorable member for Shiwangandu, is it a point of order you want to debate?
Madam Speaker, I'll debate after the seconders seconded the motion.
Okay. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The honorable member for Kafue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity again to add my voice on the motion on the floor. Indeed, as the mover indicated, we lost the election for the presidency of PAP by 1 vote, which was a very painful experience. And that victory would have meant a lot, actually, for our country. And it was going to be very crucial that we had united as a country to deliver that victory. Maybe one small important detail that the chair omitted was that this was also a session that saw me get elected as vice chairperson of the Education Committee at the Pan-African Parliament. So other than the various topics of discussion we had, Madam Speaker. The one of interest which I wanted to highlight was the one pertaining to the issue of drugs, which is what even this Parliament back home, I think in this session, we had a report from one of your committees, that talked about the issue of drugs. So apparently, this topic also preoccupied our discussions at the Pan-African Parliament, where we looked at the devastating effects of drug and substance abuse on children and the youths of Africa. The continent is predominantly made up of many young people, and so, however, most of these young people are getting addicted to drugs, and which is why it was one of the topical issues. So the Continental Parliament noted that the scourge of drugs and substance abuse was undermining the efforts to provide a conducive learning environment and hampering the full development of the human capital that is critically needed for the continent's social and economic growth. During the debate, Madam Speaker, some alarming methods the youths are using to intoxicate themselves, were discussed. Pretty much in the same way, as we heard from home, where our youths are, abusing substances like ammonia and smoking dried algae, in some cases exhuming bones, of dead people to make them into some, form of substance that they then inhale to make themselves, feel high, as they call it. And of course, this has led to many of our children becoming what we are terming as junkies. So the Continental Parliament has recognized the multifaceted nature of drug abuse and its devastating impact on the African youth. As such, there was a call to strengthen international cooperation to combat drug smuggling, to improve job opportunities, and also to provide more education opportunities and also mount continuous awareness programs so that our youths can stay away, from this. The PAP, therefore, called for comprehensive awareness and preventive measures, which should include advocating for health and positive alternatives, such as provision of sports, arts, and social activities. Madam Speaker, the plenary also reflected on the need to strengthen the African family value system as a cornerstone for modeling responsible future generations. It was emphasized that the family was the cornerstone of society where essential values, norms, and behaviors are nurtured for our young generation. The PAP acknowledged that the role of the family was a foundational unit for demographic reproduction and citizen training, and also highlighted the importance of instilling respect, responsibility, and solidarity within the family structure. Concerns were raised that there was a breakdown in the inculcation of African family values and norms and effects where the upbringing of the children and youths who are now addicted to these harmful substances. Madam Speaker, the debates at the Continental Parliament revealed a strong sense of commitment towards preserving traditional African norms and values amidst the increase in globalized influences. The spirited debates reflected a broader commitment within the African parliamentary circles to safeguard cultural heritage while navigating the challenges of globalization. So consequently, Madam Speaker, some recommendations were crafted, and the first one was that member countries should initiate laws focused on the family and accelerate the legislation on family law reform. That member states should allocate sufficient budgets in order to allow ministries in charge of social protection and family to fulfill their missions. That member countries should promote inclusive African cultural values by developing family support systems and strengthening programs aimed at strengthening communities and religious institutions. And finally, that member states should develop educational policies that ensure equal access to quality education from early childhood to higher education. So in conclusion, Madam Speaker, allow me to re-emphasize the need for Zambia to seriously consider implementing these recommendations in order to uplift the plight and voices of our young people, women and girls and other marginalized groups in the country. The future of the continent is threatened by vices such as drug abuse and a breakdown in family values. If nothing is done, Madam Speaker, our continent is doomed. We need to act now. Indeed, our delegation, Madam Speaker, remains indebted for your support that you continue to render to us to participate in those meetings under difficult conditions, as you heard from our delegation leader. You may be aware, Madam Speaker, that attendance at PAP does not even attract any allowances, either on the other side, different from the widely held perception. Our participation there is completely voluntary, and if this Parliament cannot send us, then we are not able to go, and that is how in the last session we only were able to attend for a few days and not the entire session as we would have been required to do. We thank you for that support.
Thank you very much. Maybe for purposes of clarification, I don't think that there is any honorable member who is paid for attending these international activities. All depends on the National Assembly of Zambia funding these activities, but we never get any allowances anyway. The honorable member for Shiwangando.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to briefly comment on the motion to adopt the report of your delegation accredited to the Pan-African Parliament, which attended an elective session. Madam Speaker, PAP is a very critical institution of the African Union. And I think through this report, outside Nairobi, you as our heads of country legislative arms of government, that where you meet, you need to agree on how we should progress with this very important institution. Because sending our delegations to the institution, which is yet to be given legislative powers by ratifying the protocol, will be just a challenge for our legislative institutions. Even as the mover of the motion, delegation leader, was speaking about the model law, it becomes difficult how much binding this model law is going to be, coming from a legislative institution which hasn't been given the authority to legislate on behalf of the African Union. And so that's where the challenge lies. And it's important that you, as our heads of these arms of government, find a common ground. It also speaks to the issue that the mover of the motion was raising regarding the budget constraints. Because you can only fund an institution which is effective, and the decisions and the resolutions that are coming from that institution having an impact on individual member states. So it's very critical as you meet on your platforms to agree on how we should proceed with the Pan-African Parliament in order to make it relevant to the African Union community family. That said, Madam Speaker, I would like to reflect on the main item on the agenda, which was elections. And in commenting on that, I would like to start by congratulating our own honorable member was informed us that she's been elected to be vice chairperson of the committee responsible for education. And also, since we are SADC, a member of SADC region, to congratulate Chief Charumbira, who emerged as president of PAP. Now, what lessons should we learn from these elections? I don't think our delegation should feel that they were defeated. In my view, there was no winner and loser. Why, Madam Speaker? Because the leadership of PAP presidency is rotational. And rotational in what? In sub-region organs. So this time it's SADC, next time it will be EAU, then it will be the North, and that way. And so maybe we have to reflect on the background. I think the person who was re-elected was president of PAP before the wrangles that the move of the motion spoke to. Normally, Madam Speaker, the experience we have had, some of us who had the chance to deal with PAP issues, is many regions agree, give and take, negotiations on sponsoring who the candidate should be without even going to elections. If it's East African bloc, they will sit and agree and say, this is the candidate we are going with to the main plenary without even elections, to show the unity of the sub-region bloc. And in this case, we were competing with a country we have called as Siamese twins, Zimbabwe, within SADC. So you can imagine, Madam Speaker, how our bilateral relations can be affected on some of these things. What should have been a brotherly discussion to say, gentlemen, who are we going with as the sub-region of SADC to the main plenary? It was subjected to elections. And as you know, the information we have, Madam Speaker, is that one of our members who was here and was not sitting with us for a long time, I think was on leave, was not available at the summit. And what that could have done, Madam Speaker, they would then end up with a tie. Sub-region, two candidates on a tie. And I don't know what could have happened, whether they could have gone two candidates from the same sub-region to go and compete in the plenary. So it shows disunity, and this must be avoided. For us to lobby for positions in these organizations, be it sub-region, SADC, AU, Madam Speaker, you can do whatever you can spend money. If there is no give and take, if there is no brotherly understanding, you can't succeed. And this, we must have on record that it should be avoided. If their desire was to change Chief Charumbira with our colleague, it should have been discussed sincerely and honestly, without being seen to be undermining each other. So, we could have been speaking a different language, Madam Speaker. But the core is, we must be united as a sub-region of SADC. Because that little competition might be little, but it might escalate into something without us knowing, which can jeopardize our bilateral relationship with our neighboring country, which was Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, then Zambia, and now
Honorable Member
Republic
for Shiwangandu, there is an indication for a point of order. Honorable Member for Nyimba, what's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, pursuant to order number 71, the member debating is a senior member of this House, Madam Speaker. And he understands a lot about PAP. Therefore, it is in order, Madam Speaker, to ensure that when we went for elections, we were disturbing the relationship between Zimbabwe and Zambia. Madam Speaker, he knows that at PAP, Zambia is treated like a small country and Zimbabwe is a big brother. Because he was a minister and he understands this. Is therefore in order to start questioning the democracy of the institution by having two people to go into a plenary for elections, which Zambia would have won, and he knows that he would have won. So is in order to start telling the nation the information, it's like his preview to more information than us, the members of PAP, are privy to. Is it in order, Madam Speaker, to continue misleading the nation? Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Let's avoid debating other countries. When we are debating, the issue of elections is actually, by the way, the main issues here is the model law that was adopted. So let's not concentrate too much on the elections. What happened is now water under the bridge, but we can learn lessons from there. So may the honorable member for Shuangan to continue.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, indeed, if you have followed my debate, by no way insinuating that there could be any problem that the other country, which is considered, I mean, we attained independence rather than them. It was Dr. Kaunda negotiating the Lancaster deals in order to have Zimbabwe an independent state. So we can never be considered younger than Zimbabwe. But we are very
Order, honorable members, let's avoid
Madam Speaker,
other countries.
I was just making a point that we have to continue striving to attain leadership at these continental institutions. And I was saying, we learn lessons from this seemingly setback so that next time we can do better by lobbying, engaging, which can be very helpful to us instead of going head-on in terms of competition. The model law, again, it will be just one document lying and gathering dust, because the institution where the model law is coming from is yet to be given legislative authority. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. The honorable member from Mbabala.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving us an opportunity to contribute to this report from the Pan-Africa delegation, as ably moved by Honorable Sampa and ably seconded by Honorable Chinyama. Madam Speaker, it's a pity actually that some of the disorganization in our former ruling party led to this problem of elections. We hope in future they can learn to be organized like we are on your right, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to comment on the model, first on the model law on cooperatives. Because in this country, Madam Speaker, we have seen cooperatives being used for agriculture in the area of FISIP. We are very organized in Nakonde One, as you can see. And we have remained a united force under able leadership of His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. You hear me clearly? Madam Speaker, the cooperatives continue also to do housing. We've got housing cooperatives here, and we've got an organization called on housing and the environment. We also have cooperatives now working in the area of Constituency Development Fund, or CDF. A lot of cooperatives are applying for funding support and the like. And we also have a number of financial saving cooperatives or circles, including the issues of financial pyramids that are not registered, which are doing a lot in our communities, such as some of them are called the community name of Chirimba. Or I don't know what is the actual name in English. but I know it's about putting money together and sharing it at the end of an agreed term period. And a lot of that money doesn't go through our official bank system. But of course, mobile money has captured it, and also is captured in other areas of commerce. But it would have been good if it was also captured in the bank system. So, Madam Speaker, what I'm commenting on is on this SADC Pan-African model law, which on cooperatives, that this law, the Ministry of Commerce needs to take interest in this
There is
law.
an order, Honorable Member for Mbabala. There is an indication for a point of order. Honorable Member for Nakonde, what's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, I rarely raise point of orders. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 71, the Honorable Member who is debating has just issued a very serious statement that the new dawn is organized.
Extremely.
Madam Speaker, because of the issues that Zambians are passing through, the suffering, it has been created by the new dawn. The corruption, Madam Speaker, that we are seeing.
Order, Honorable Member. Now you are taking us away from the report. You are taking us away from the report. What is the breach that
The breach is not telling the truth. Is telling us that the party, the new dawn, is organized. When you are seeing a lot of corruption, how organized are they? When 61, Madam Speaker, containers were missing under their watch.
Order, Honorable Member for Nakonde. You know we don't have the luxury of time. You are making serious allegations. Order. You are making serious allegations about corruption. Please, Honorable Member, is it possible for you to lay this evidence on the table so that we can take it to the law enforcement agencies? Because even as we are tired of this corruption. So if you have evidence, bring it here so that we give it to the relevant institutions. And the reason why, I've not finished, the reason why the Honorable Member from Mbabala responded to you is because you were debating while you were seated. So that is not again allowed. And now we are being taken away from the core business that we are discussing. You are bringing in issues which you cannot substantiate. Standing Order 71. You should be the facts that you should be factual, and those facts should be verifiable. Now, what you are saying, Honorable Member, is it factual? And if it's factual, do you have evidence to verify? Do you have evidence, Honorable Member? Sorry?
The FIC report, Madam Speaker, is there that reviewed that.
Honorable Member, have you read the report? Does it mention anyone? Does it mention anyone? I'm giving you 3 days to bring those reports to my office so that we can be able to take it to the... Yes, please. By Friday, before we adjourn, we should see that evidence in my office. May the Honorable Member from Mbabala continue.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. In line with Standing Order 71 on the factual and evidence, the foreign regime, which is over there, left a debt of 14.3 billion.
Order, Honorable Member, let's stick to the report. Let's not be diverted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, because it's very true that they even killed people like Shimujira and others. So let me come to the cooperatives, which I was debating before I was disturbed by the other side, which is not listening to the debate, because my honorable friend was busy chatting outside. So he missed the the gist of what was presented by the SADC PF team. The team was talking about a model law on cooperatives, Madam Speaker. And this model law, like I was saying, is that in Zambia we've got many aspects to the cooperative movement. And what we are trying to ask for to the Ministry of Commerce is to take interest so that we can harmonize the use of the cooperative movement in this country to ensure that the cooperative movement deals with everything, because, Madam Speaker, it's very expensive for the various wings or groupings to process their registration and certificates or compliance mechanisms. If we can only manage to utilize one cooperative certificate, then we can be able to do a lot and save a lot and help our communities a lot. The cooperative movement in our villages, which is mostly working in the area of FISIP, should be utilized for housing cooperatives to improve housing quality, should be utilized for Constituency Development Fund to ensure that they access CDF, should be utilized for the circles or the financial savings groups that are all over the country right now. Therefore, it is in our interest, Madam Speaker, that we take keen interest and support this model law, which also needs to see its cascading to our local laws in the finance and the e-commerce and related. I therefore want to urge this House to indeed support this report and move on improving this area of legislation so that it can help in doing business. Madam Speaker, I also want to talk about the need for linkages to the local portfolio committees in the House, both those to do with the parastatal bodies, but also, for example, in commending my sister, Madam Honorable Chinyama, on her election to the Education Committee at Pan-African Parliament. We need to harmonize and bring about good linkages between the Education Portfolio Committee and other committees out there to our local committees. Because I was privy earlier this year or last year when we saw a report from the health component of the Pan-African Parliament, and yet as a local portfolio committee on health we had not received anything in that context. So the person representing us at that level needs to give reports to the local portfolio committee so that there is harmonization in this in our work, and also improve the implementation mechanism at the local level. I want to commend the committee, also the group for the area of combating drugs. I think we have heard several reports on the floor of this House. And what is required now is to implement those reports and findings, and also to work in the area of rehabilitation, where we have seen a lot of effort by some of our citizens who have put rehabilitation centers, and I think we need to do a lot more out there, including campaigns to ensure that we curb the issue of drug abuse and alcoholism, which is also addressing the national values which His Excellency normally brings and talks about when he comes to this August House. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you and support this report. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Member for Matero, winding up debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to all that debated. Let me start with the last debate, Honorable Munsanje, MP from Mbabala, just to say that your well-researched debate, I adopt it and agree with you 100%. Let me go with the best debater, the Honorable Member for Kafue for the Seconda. Allow me to publicly congratulate you also for having been elected a vice chairperson of a committee, and on the same breath, thank you for your background support during that campaign that went through. Also thank Honorable Menyani Zulu for the vigilance that he gave in the campaign, and Honorable Newton Samakai. Madam Speaker, your delegation is well respected at the Parliament. Here we are from different political parties. When we get there, it's one Zambia, one nation. If there's one place where one Zambia, one nation works, is this delegation you sent to the Pan-African Parliament. We worked as a team, and we won as a team. They robbed us. That said, Madam Speaker, allow me to move on and respond lastly to the debater, Honorable Senior MP, Honorable Stephen Kampiongo. Madam Speaker, I think the senior MP was speaking from a point of not having adequate information. Our standing at that election was Zambia saying no to being a second class at that parliament, of Zambia saying no of not being a sovereign country. SADC has 10 countries. Zambia is one of them, and we have sovereignty. We are equal to every other country. There's no senior country or junior country in SADC. The norm was we should leave it to somebody because they are senior or because they've been there longer. Somebody has been there since the parliament was formed in 2004 to date. And so we are saying no to that. Lastly, Madam Speaker, as I conclude in the interest of time, allow me to just point out one cardinal aspect because it replicates in many other areas. There's this thing in SADC of liberation parties. So if you are from a party that won independence in your country, they have this unity. So because one candidate I was competing with was from a party that won independence, they went to another party in another country, they sat together. So when I was lobbying for, they sat and told all their MPs, most of them are in the ruling parties, to vote for that candidate because it's from the liberation struggle. So when I was campaigning, I approached the Secretary General of a ruling party. You know what they told me? No, we've agreed to support a liberation party candidate. If you had been from UNIP, would have supported you, but you are not from UNIP. So we said no to that, and we went and lobbied and campaigned. Some of their ruling party liberation MPs voted for us. So that era of, even if it was a candidate from UPND, they were not going to vote for him because, or her, because you are not from a liberation party. So we should say no to that. Any MP is an MP, and on these international bodies, they all qualify to stand. And we won that, but everything happens for a reason. Maybe I was meant to stay home, Madam Speaker, and not be in South Africa, so that I can unite the party called the PF. Madam Speaker, with that, I thank you very much. Thank you.
They say silence is golden. I wanted to say something, but I've opted not to. I put the question. The question is that this House adopts the report of the Zambian delegation to the Pan-African Parliament for the third ordinary session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament held from 25th June to 6th July 2024 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26th July 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. The clerk will now read the orders of the day.
The Minerals Regulation Commission Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2024, committee stage.
I now consolidate orders number 1 and 2, and the House will now resolve into committee.
the Minerals Regulation Commission Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2024. As we are, honorable members, as you are aware, the Minerals Regulation Commission was retained by the President for reconsideration by the House. The procedure for the reconsideration of the retained bill at committee stage is provided under Standing Orders 128(6) of the National Assembly of Zambia, Standing Orders 2024, which provides as follows. 128, procedure when bill is retained. 6, during consideration of the bill at committee stage, the committee of the whole House may A, amend the bill taking into consideration the President's reservations, or B, pass the bill with amendments by a vote supported by at least 2/3 of the members of Parliament. Considering that there are amendments on the bill that have been circulated, the Committee of the whole House will proceed in line with Standing Orders 128(6)(a). In this regard, the bill will be considered clause by clause. Clause 1, short title. Any debate, any objection? Clause 1 is agreed to. Clause 2, interpretation. Honorable members, I wish to inform the committee that 2 amendments have been received for this clause. One from the Honorable Minister of Mines, Minerals Development, and the other one from Mr. Kaloba. Standing Orders 116(5) gives priority to the amendment moved by the promoter of the bill. Therefore, the committee shall consider the minister's amendment first before proceeding to the one moved by Mr. Kalobo. The question is that Clause 2 stands part of the bill. The Honorable Minister of Mines and Minerals Development.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I beg to move that Clause 2 be amended with words as circulated.
The question is that Clause 2 be amended with words as circulated. Any debate, any objection? Amendment is agreed to. I put a question. The question is that Clause 2 as amended stands part of the bill. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary, say no. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Clause 2 as amended is ordered to stand as part of the bill. We now proceed to consider Mr. Kalo's amendment. The question is that Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Mr. Kalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that Clause 2 be further amended with the words as circulated.
The question is that Clause 2 be further amended with words as circulated. Any debate, any objection? Amendment is agreed to. Clause 2 as amended. Any further debate?
Chairperson, allow me to remind the House that during the presentation of this bill at first reading, sorry, Chairperson, I'm reading something else. Chairperson, the bill has provided adequate definition of mineral royalty, which is sufficient insofar as it relates to the collection of royalty for the extraction of minerals. Moreover, unlike what the honorable member seems to propose in his definition, the value of the mineral cannot be ascertained when underground, but once it is extracted,
Therefore, the honourable member's definition is likely to pose challenges in operationalization, particularly in its submission.
I put a question. The question is that clause 2 as amended stands part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye, of the contrary say no. No. The noes have it. The question is in the negative. Clause 3, minerals to vest in president. The question is that clause 3 stands part of the bill. Honorable member, the amendment has fallen off. May you take your seat? It was subjected to a vote. So it was subjected to a vote and the House resolved that the amendment has fallen off. So we proceed because it was under the resolve of the House. So let's make progress. I hope, honorable member, you've understood. Because there are many amendments in this bill, if you want to rise before it's subjected to a vote, because once the House has resolved through the vote, there's nothing we can do. I put the question. The question is that clause 2 as amended stands part of bill. As many are of that opinion say aye. For 17. I'm just repeating. All right, okay. The noes have it. Let's make progress. Clause 3, minerals to vest in president. The question is that clause 3 stands part of the bill. Mr. Kalobo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that clause 3 be amended with the words as seconded.
The question is that clause 3 be amended with words as circulated. Any debate, any objection? Amendment is agreed to. Clause 3 as amended. Any further debate? Mr. Kalobo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Or Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, due to procedural issues on this undertaking, ours was that the president himself is an institution, is a sovereign. So we realized it was wrongly pressed. So what we wanted to do was that to change the wording there where the president is, we put the minister so that the minister of finance can replace the president there so that he can hold not less than 40% of the shares but due to procedural issues under your office, it was not changed. So it can be pressed the way it is. You just change president, you put the minister, then we press it maybe under clause 15, so that we preserve the sovereignty of the presidency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I put the question. The question is that clause 3 as amended stands part of the bill. As many as that opinion say. Huh? Any further debate? The Honorable Minister of Mines and Minerals Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think, Chairperson, the way it came and the way that it has been said now on the floor is a bit confusing and different, because we maintain ourselves that the name president must be maintained. And also, with regards to the threshold of not less than 40% of government stake in mining investment, while this is welcome, Mr. Speaker or Mr. Chairman, government's position is that clause 15 of the bill, which provides for acquisition of mining rights and investment by government, is adequate, and that it proposes for regulations, a statutory instrument, which is the modulus operandi, and it shall be defined. So the proposed amendment is therefore better placed in a statutory instrument, because in a statutory instrument, Mr. Chairman, it will be easier to change if we are changing thresholds. But if we embed it in the Constitution, it even limits us. Maybe in case a future decision is made that we want to go to 50%, just as an example, then it will take us again to go back to Parliament. But if we do an SI will be easy to change. So I think it remains as it is, that it remains vested in the President, but if regulations can be made, that will now define what percentages we can hold in various mining companies. I submit, Mr. Chairman.
Any further debate? Mr. Kampiongo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chairperson, first of all, I want to place it on record that in invoking Article 61, Sub-Article 1B of the Republican Constitution, His Excellency the President indicated that the bill was coming in order to have what he described as an all-inclusive consultation. And so the proposed amendment, in as much as we support what the minister is saying, which might be in line with the Lands Act, where the president is mentioned, maybe the issue of the statutory instrument, Minister, if you can assure us by moving that to clause 15, which is basically talking about the issues of stake. And if you can do something in line with the report that came before this House from the committee which was reviewing the implementation of the 8th National Development Plan, which was speaking to the standard practices in terms of shareholding, which gives you, as the sector ministry, some amount of control, because below 30%, as we know, you have no authority in terms of control on what goes on in the sector. So we may appreciate your desire to use the statutory instrument, but if it would be for the interest of the nation, we can put it in an Act of Parliament. And in any case, an Act of Parliament can still be brought back here for amendment if it proves that what is being suggested can pose a challenge in the sector. But for the interest of the Zambians and the millions of people that you are carrying on your shoulders in this sector, it would be prudent to consider that standard shareholding to reflect in the in the Act of Parliament. I submit, Mr. Chairperson.
The Honorable Minister of Mines and Mineral Resources to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Honorable Member. I really get your point, but as government we are saying it will be easier and faster using an SI when we leave the Act of Parliament as it is, but use regulations. Why? The other thinking behind is that we may not say that this is the threshold. We may want to go to 49. We may want, like we have done for Mopani. So I think that an SI would be the best option. We believe in government having more stakes in these mines, and I think that an SI will be an easier way out than, again, coming back and forth to Parliament to amend, to do what an SI is faster. You've been in government, Honorable Member, and you understand how quicker an SI is than coming back to Parliament to amend. I submit, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kangombe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chairperson, from what I'm getting on this particular proposed amendment, there appears to be an agreement that government needs to have a stake in all the mining companies. The argument now is whether this minimum of 40% should either be in a statutory instrument or it should sit in an Act of Parliament. Now, if the principle has been agreed upon, it goes without saying that the 40% is not the fixed amount of shares that the Zambian government should hold in a mining company. And I was probably expecting the Minister of Mines to agree that 40% shall be the minimum. If government decided today that 49% is what we should hold, definitely 40% is minimum. It means that we can fluctuate between 41% and 100%. It essentially means the same thing. So, Mr. Chairperson, I want to basically borrow the words of everyone who has debated and submit to this committee stage process that we stick to a minimum of 40%, and this should be prescribed in an Act of Parliament. The people of Kamfinsa submit, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Mines and Minerals Development.
Mr. Chairman, government maintains its position.
Mr. Muira.
Mr. Chairperson, thank you very much. Mr. Chairperson, in agreeing with the amendment and also agreeing that the minister actually has no problem, except he wants it to sit in an SI, he is relying his position on clause 15. But Mr. Chairperson, I wish to remind the minister that clause 15, as it stands, is being contested by the witnesses, that it is ambiguous and discretionary. Yes, it is trying to secure government rights and interests in the shareholding, but the witnesses have raised a concern in clause 15 as it stands. So therefore, by prescribing the minimum interest of the government in the mining companies, it is prudent that we actually specify to remove that discretionary and ambiguity that the witnesses have raised. It is just okay that we specify the minimum interest of the government to sit in the Act. Further, Mr. Chairperson, the minister's concern is that should we wish to amend, we will have to bring back the bill here, but we already have other clauses. For example, clause 69, which is talking about mineral royalty. We already have the rates in this Act which are specified, which is basically the same, because should we wish to revisit the rates that have been prescribed for mineral royalty, we still have to bring the bill back here, which goes to support our proposal that we specify the government interest within the Act and not in the subsidiary law. I submit, Chairperson.
The Honorable Minister of Mines and Minerals Development.
Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the honorable members who have raised this issue. I think that government is saying we use an SI. and remain with the law as it is. So we are basically all agreed. So trust that government will do what you want in terms of, raising the threshold and the stakes. But as it concerns this bill, this particular bill, government is proposing that it sits like this, and then we'll deal with regulations through an SI. We can talk about the issues of stakes. So, Mr. Chairman, government is still saying this is how it wants the bill to sit. I submit.
Mr. Chewe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity given to the people of Volubansenshi constituents to add a voice on this interesting bill. I'll just go straight to, first and foremost, the benefits that this bill trying to bring to the Zambian people, regardless of the district, constituency, or region. What this bill is trying to speak to the Zambian people is basically to maximize the benefit of these minerals that Zambia has. And this is the best time that we should come up with a law which is going to make sure that Zambian people get the maximum benefits. In this case, when you look at clause 15, Mr. Chairperson, and in accordance with the amendments that has been proposed, we are saying, when you look at these mining companies, in terms of getting the maximum benefit, it's important to enshrine in our Constitution, in this case in the Act, to avoid giving discretion to a particular, for instance, minister.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairperson, when you look at this clause 15, it's proposing to give powers to a particular minister in this case. So now we are saying the law should be clear in terms of shareholding. If it's 40%, we are saying it should be a minimum. Okay? So that when the government, in this case, when the government is say,
Order, honorable member.
Go for 50%.
Order.
Already we have secured 40%.
Order. There's a point of order by Mwandi.
Mr. Chairperson, thank you so very much for allowing me to stand on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I'm taken aback because this actually, the mineral regulation bill was referred to the committee that I chair, where the honorable member that is currently sitting, debating on the floor of the House belongs to. And he is actually part of the team that interrogated this bill that we are debating today. Is the honorable member for Oluwasenshi in order to come here on the floor of the House and go against the report that was produced by his own committee? Mr. Speaker, in the new standing orders, that's 102. That's standing order number 71. Is the honorable member for Oluwasenshi in order, Mr. Speaker? He is a member of my committee. Where this, the committee that I chair, where this was referred. Mr. Speaker, I submit for your serious ruling.
The honorable member, Mr. Chewe, you were part of the committee that interrogated the witnesses and part of the report. So if he's going against his own report, then he's completely out of order. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson. I wish to bring it to your attention, Mr. Chairperson, to say I'm not against with the report, or what I'm trying to say is to cement on the proposed amendments. In this case, in this case, Mr. Chairperson, I'm 100% in support of the report. And I'm 100% in terms of cementing the amendments. And additionally, we are saying, or I'm saying, 40% should be a minimum in terms of shareholding. If the government creates a deal to say 60% shareholding in these mines, that is good for the country. But at times we are even failing to negotiate even 10% in terms of shareholding in these mines. So all what we are saying, let's come out clearly in the act so that it becomes the law. So that we don't even waste time in terms of negotiating for shareholding. I submit, Mr. Chairperson.
The Honorable Minister of Mines and Minerals Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know why people, sometimes we want to waste a lot of time when we know really the position where something is supposed to be. And this government has said, we maintain this bill, but we are going to use regulations. And those regulations will help us to achieve, we will still achieve the same goal. So, Mr. Chairman, sometimes as Africans, we waste time on when we even know where something is going. So let's just agree that this is what the position that the bill maintains like this, but we are going to use regulations. We agree about government. Mr. Chairman, am I protected, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
you are protected.
And when somebody casts aspersions, Mr. Chairman, that sometimes we fail to even negotiate for any stake in any mine, that cannot be further from the truth. We have never failed to do that as government. As we are talking Lubambe mines, we are increasing shares from the current 20 to 30% during negotiations. So the intention of this government is very clear. We increased for Mopani, we have increased in Lubambe. So we are not playing games with increasing stakes in these mines. I submit, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. As the time is 18:55 hours, I interrupt the proceedings and committee work stands adjourned. The committee will report progress and ask leave to sit again. Madam Speaker, I have to report to the House that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Minerals Regulation Commission Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2024, and has made progress and asked leave to sit again.
Thank you. Day of resumption of committee work.
Tomorrow, Madam Speaker.
Committee work to resume tomorrow. The House. Is now adjourned.
Good evening. Thank you for still watching Parliament Television. Business of the House has just adjourned, and we now take a look at business that has been considered from the time business resumed at 14:30 hours.
Yes, Taza, when business resumed, Madam Speaker did make one announcement of pupils and teachers from New Start Christian Academy in Garden House, Lusaka District. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the National Assembly of Zambia, warmly welcomed the visit.
Announcement, we did see the President move a motion that's urging that standing orders 24-1, 27 and 123 of the National Assembly of Zambia Standing Orders 2024 be suspended to enable the House to sit at 09 hours until business on the order paper for each day is completed from Wednesday 31st July to Friday 2nd August 2024, and also to consider more than one stage of a bill at a single sitting, and this motion was agreed to.
After that, the Minister of Health presented 4 government bills that have all been read the first time and have been referred to the Committee on Health, Community Development and Social Services, and the committee is expected to present reports of these bills to the House in due course. These include the Health Professions Bill, National Assembly Bill number 11 of 2024.
The second one is the National Health Research and Training Institute Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2024.
The third one is the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency Amendment Bill, National.
And the fourth one is the Zambia National Public Health Institute Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2024.
After consideration of those bills, the House went on to consider one question for oral answer under Standing Order 82, and this question came from Solowezi East Member of Parliament, Mr. Alex Katakwe. He directed his question to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wanted to find out whether the government has banned the Mukanda traditional practice, which is mainly practiced in Northwestern Province, and if so, why the practice has been banned despite its cultural and health benefits. And the Minister did say that the practice has not been banned, therefore question B fell off.
And thereafter, the House went on to consider three motions that were moved by Mr. Mubika, who is Shangombo Member of Parliament, and I must make mention that the three motions were seconded by Kwacha Member of Parliament, Mr. Charles Mulenga. We take a look at the three motions.
The first motion was to adopt the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the Beira Development Corridor Agreement, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024, and so this motion has been adopted.
The second motion was urging that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the Central Corridor Transportation Facilitation Agency Agreement, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26th July 2024, and this motion has been adopted.
The third one was to adopt the report of the Committee on Transport, Works and Supply on the proposal to ratify the international agreement on the tripartite road and railway transport and the revised Nakala Development Corridor, and that such adoption signifies the approval of the House for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Friday, 26 July 2024. This motion has been equally adopted.
The House also considered a motion that was moved by Mr. Miles Sampa, who is a material member of Parliament, urging that this House adopts the report of the Zambian delegation to the Pan